notes here. Okay. Call to order. Rita, could you do the roll call?
I'd be happy to. Mr. Doherty.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Jones.
Yeah.
Mr. Murphy.
Yep.
Chairman Lyons.
Here.
And let the record show that our alternates are both here today. Mr. Roche, and I believe you are Mr. Kent, right? The attorney is absent with notice, and the town manager is here also.
Okay, any comments on the minutes?
No. I move they be accepted as presented.
Second.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Chairman Lyons?
Yes.
I don't know what that is. It's usually a cell phone.
Last two meetings.
Let's see what happens.
Yep. Brush your fingers.
Rita, are there any additions, withdrawals, deferrals, arrangement of agenda items?
No, there are not.
Thank you. The next meeting is on December 18th. Most of us going to be here?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. So why don't we start with the first application? What did I
Chairman,
skip?
the spatial meeting
Oh,
that
thank
you
you.
called was, we had a motion to have it on December 9th. The attorney was unable to be here that date, so I think I touched base with everyone about holding it on the 8th. So if everyone's in agreement with that, we would need a motion to change it to the 8th.
Well, I make a motion, we change it, the special meeting to December 8th from December 9th.
I'll second that.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Chairman Lyons?
Yes. Okay, why don't we start with that first application on Gulfstream Road?
Are there any ex parte communications?
No.
Anyone that intends to speak at any of this public hearing today, please stand and be sworn. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but your truth, so help you God?
I do. Good morning.
Good morning.
Is this on? My name is Gary Stoff from Randall Stoff Architects. I'm representing Ted and Cheryl Foreman for a small addition we're doing to their home at 3032 Gulfstream Road. We have a existing 2,445 square foot home on a 13,715 square foot lot. So this is the existing structure on the house, and we're adding, we're redoing some inside, and we're adding this space outside. We're adding 412 square feet of living space and 158 square feet of covered lanai. So we've reconfigured to give them a den and family room and dining room reconfigured, and then added this covered lanai. The existing structure comes across straight here, so we're just adding this in the back. We're not affecting, it's all kind of deck, existing deck right now, so we're not affecting any landscaping, we're not affecting any drainage. We're not affecting, this is a small colored rendering of the rear. We're keeping the roof all below the existing structure, so you won't have any impact from the road at all. That basically concludes concludes my presentation. Any questions?
I just have a question. I see the house was built in the 1940s on your application.
I believe that's correct.
It's
But-
interesting for that area of Gulfstream in the neighborhood.
But I think part of it was added on to once, right?
Yeah, I think there's some issue as to when the actual date was. It says the forties on some of the documents, but then there was a small addition that was done later, but I believe the original structure was the forties, so.
Okay.
There's a flat roof over the main part of the home now,
Correct.
and what type of roof is gonna be over? I can sort of say, you're gonna peak the roofs over the new den and lanai, but stay
There's a-
below.
There's a huge flat roof here now. Well, it's really, it's kind of convoluted. There's a few different strange roofs going on, and we're really getting rid of all that. There's a big, straight, long, straight flat here. And, I mean, Ted could fill you in on some of the stuff, but we're getting rid of all that, doing a pitch roof, but we do end up with a flat section that will have a slight pitch to the regular pitched roof. But it'll still be below the main peak and everything in front.
Could you just remind me of the lanai floor space, please?
The lanai is 156 square feet, that's the lanai area.
You know, in terms of the core, the size of the property is one of the core definition refers to as understated. It's one of the more charming, smaller homes,
It is charming looking, really.
and the front is wonderful too.
It's charming inside too. It's
I wish I could take any credit for it, but it's all right.
all Cheryl.
Any other questions?
Do you have any front elevations?
Well, I have a couple pictures.
Yeah.
Let's see, I did bring. So these two pictures are the front. I couldn't get the whole front in there, and then that is the existing rear. I have more of those if anybody else wants to see.
You stayed with asphalt shingle on the right? That's how it is now.
That's how it is now,
Was there any
so,
thought about that? I'm just more curious when you're.
well, they just didn't want to
Replace.
remove the whole roof at this point.
Rita, were there any comments from neighbors?
We've had none.
I didn't get a copy of it because I am a neighbor. I had no comment as a neighbor.
I do too, and I have no comment. I like the plan.
Somebody want to make a motion, please?
I'll make the motion to approve a level 2 architectural style site plan review to permit additions to the existing one-story Bermuda style single-family dwelling consisting of a den and a covered porch, a total of 570 square feet.
I'll second.
Tom?
Malcolm or Tom? Tom, I'll second.
Yeah,
We've got a lot of seconds here. Mr. Docker,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
yes.
Chairman Lyons.
Yes.
Thank you. You can go.
Yeah.
Almost.
Just verifying that we don't have technical difficulties like we did last time. Rita, can the lights go down on that? Rita,
Yes,
can you dim some of the lights?
I'll take care of it.
okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Good morning. For the record, Mark Marsh, Bruce Marsh Architects. Here this morning represented Patricia Verhan and Richard Eanes and their new arrival. Brought here for a little sympathy this morning. You need it?
It'll work.
Malcolm already took a dive, so.
Yeah, I fell over in awe.
I've got Hollis Tidwell here from my office, who's an architect, and Matt Jackman, who's representing Marion Rivera's office. Just to orient you, I think most of you know where this property is. It's 1424 North Ocean. It's a vacant piece of property. It happens to be, I think, one of the nicest pieces of properties in town. This whole McClue subdivision is very unique. We're blessed with the fact that it's a large property. What we're proposing today is to show you how we intend to develop it. The house is approximately 12,000 square feet gross, which is well under what we're allowed. And if you could see, it's a little bit, I don't know if we can blow it up a little bit. I just want to go through the siding of the house if I could, because it is critical. Okay, yeah, that's better. We spent a lot of time with the owners trying to come up with the right orientation. By the way, this property or project has no variance requests. It complies and exceeds just about every one of the code requirements in the code manual. But it's interesting, the alignment of the house vis-a-vis the two parallel property lines on the east and west. Our first inclination was to make the house, proposed house, outer extremes be parallel. But we've worked at looking at what's the optimum viewing from the proposed residence, and we actually fell into a pattern which on the previous, oops, I can't go back, I guess, shows that all those houses were developed with a slight angle. And we went through this and ended back up. So it makes it a little awkward. It won't affect anything on the juxtaposition on the site, but it's just interesting how critical that slight angle, which I think is about 8 or 9 degrees off parallel. Pardon? Yeah, it's hard to see, but all the houses, we did this one for the sergeants and this one, they all have that angle. So it's just curious.
Well, it's keeping with the road too, right?
Yeah, there seems to be some historical reference to that. To be honest, it really is based on the viewing across the bay, or the
intercoastal domain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what makes the lot so unique.
Right.
It has an incredible view. All right. Okay. The intent, and Matt will go into this in more detail, the road is here on the north side. We have created a very long driveway, but more of that estate look, which is a primary arrival area. We also have a service drive which goes to the garage element, which is on this northeast corner here. But the intent is to arrive at the center of the house. You will see the form of the house is very symmetrical. The style, even though it says it's Anglo-Caribbean, is more leaning towards a Georgian theme. And it's 2-story with a 1-story wing, which is mainly primarily a surface wing on the east side. As I said, we have exceeded the side yard setbacks. We've also studied very carefully the rear setback, which is ending up at about 80 feet, which normally a 50-foot setback is normal. and we have over 100, almost 200 feet of front setback. So the house is situated, and I just emphasize that because when you have a lot of this size, it's important to investigate what is the optimum setting. A lot of people will move it as far forward or move it back, and historically previously we've done a residence for this lot in the past. It was never built, and it was slightly different than this. It was similar in location, but it didn't really respect the site as much as this one. The house basically is set on a central axis, which creates a symmetry. The front portico entry area here, which is 1 story, that enters into a foyer, and then there's a lower extended loggia foyer here with a grand stair going up to the 2nd floor. I won't go through the whole plan. It's basically a family room, kitchen, breakfast, butler's area, back of the house laundry, powder rooms, and garage, the dining room, formal dining room, and then the living room, an office, and 2 guest bedrooms. This is just a blow-up of it. I think we've all had time to look at that. On the 2nd floor, you come up onto this upper loggia area and step up slightly to this gallery, which leads to the master suite on the east side. Right opposite and central is another office area, and then 2 children's rooms on the west wing. Again, circulation is very axial in the north-south, and then in gallery, in terms of galleries, both on the ground floor and the 2nd floor. So there's a lot of order to the plan. This is a pavilion which is out by the pool on the east end. It's a freestanding accessory building, and you'll see it shortly. And we will be showing you a video of this, so I'm just going through more of the technical aspects of it and then showing you the more aesthetic.
Mark, what did you call it?
Pavilion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
My funny accent, yes. And this is just a cute structure which you'll see actually comes out. The roof is again very symmetrical on the main house, across the main entry feature with the single-story garage wing. This is the main north elevation or front elevation, which has this entry portico, which we'll discuss in a little bit more detail later. But everything is balanced across this portion of the home. The heights meet the criteria, and as you can see, it's got some classical elements and some more of the Chippendale handrail that makes it a little bit unique. This is the west elevation with the main house and the garage wing, which again you'll see clearly in the video. This is the rear, again totally balanced. This is the center area. There's an outdoor loggia below and then a terrace above. This is a master suite area here, kitchen and family, and then guest beds and the children's bedrooms here. There are 2 trellis pergola elements on either side outside the family and the living room, which again you'll see clearly in the video. This is the east wing, which is the service wing primarily, with the garage wing, the laundry mudroom. This is the breakfast element. That's an octagonal element off the kitchen, and then the kitchen and the master upper here. What I'd like to do is just have, in terms of materials, these are the materials here on the architectural. It's going to be a gray tile with a moonlight color on the body of the house. The shutters are going to be St. Lucia teal, and the trim is white, which again you'll see in the video. So those are the elements.
Mark, is that a roof tile we've already approved on other
Yes.
homes? Okay.
That's the grade through and through.
The sentence is-
With that, I'd like to just ask Matt to come up and take you through the landscape hardscape quickly, and then we'll go through the video and respond to any architectural elements.
Morning. Matt Jackman with Navarro Williams Design. I'll quickly go through the landscape and hardscape. Since the site is so big, you're looking at the overall site here, we kind of broke it down, so you'll see that in the next sheet. But there are a lot of existing trees and palms and buffer material that we want to preserve on the site, and that'll become more apparent on these next couple of sheets. Here's a blow-up of the front entry. There's an existing 8-foot tall ficus hedge along the perimeter that we're going to maintain. We're proposing new entrance gates and wing walls here at the main entry. We're going to keep that same entryway access point through the driveway. There are 2 large sea grape trees existing on the site. We're going to relocate them to this location right here, kind of creating an archway over the entrance drive. So once you get past these gates, you're immediately greeted by this sea grape canopy. The driveway material is a tabby material. I have a sample here. We can take a look at that later. But as you come through the driveway, another way to break up this long, monotonous driveway is we created 2 berms on either side. There's one this location here and one location here. Just a raised mound with some planting on it, some palm trees, coconut palms, some possibly a bottle brush tree on this side, just to soften it up. Another element that we added is a kind of a forced perspective down into this location with some citrus trees. At the end of that terminus would be some sort of a piece of artwork, sculpture that would possibly light up, just to create some little intricate niches inside the property. As you meander through the driveway up to the kind of the grand entrance, we have this traffic roundabout here, and the anchor in that area is a large specimen rusty fig is what we'd like to put there. Very hardy tree, nice canopy, shade coverage. Along the facade of the building we have a lot of palm trees, tropical fields, some flowering shrubs, Alexander palms, pygmy date palms, coconut palms, and that nature. There's a coral walkway that leads from the front door out to the drive, as well as another access point to this portion of the house right here. Again, I said this driveway is going to be tabby. We're going to create delineation in hardscape material, so the service drive is going to be a concrete driveway. We're providing an overflow parking space here. There's a large existing fiddle-leaf ficus tree that's really nice. We're going to keep that right here. All along the north property line, there's an areca palm hedge and a little bit of ficus understory. We're going to maintain that in place. This is the utility yard. As opposed to putting a site wall there, we're putting it, it's going to act as a retaining wall. We're going to mound the earth up to it, so you'll never really see that wall unless you're hidden within that space. And again, we'll soften that with some tropical plantings such as thatch palms, traveler's palms, coconut palms, stuff like that. This is the driveway area, just kind of kept that simple and open. As you make your way past the driveway, we are proposing on the top and the bottom portion of the site to close off the space, a wall and a gate. So after you get past the gate in this location, there's a little bit of a lawn space for the children to play. I'll flip to the second page.
Can you go back? Is it possible? I'll just ask you, along the west side, there's now an entrance right where you just had the mark. You're gonna close that off, but it looks like you're still leaving it open. You're gonna take the driveway out, but leave that open?
Yeah, that's a good point. I was going to come back to that.
Okay.
There is an agreement between adjacent property owners and the Vians that driveway is going to be abandoned. There will be a pedestrian gate.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
thanks for bringing it up. Mention that.
Yeah, sorry about that. There is a proposed entrance gate in between 2 large trees right here. There's a pigeon plum and a sapodilla. We're going to anchor that gate right inside, in between those. So getting back up to this portion of the site, after you go through this little lawn area, we're creating a space which we're kind of loosely calling the secret garden area. It creates a good relationship with the breakfast eating area. There's a coral walkway that's kind of hard to see, but there's a coral walkway that goes through a little bit of a water feature here. It acts as a bridge. We're going to be putting some tropical planting in there, some shade-loving plants, just something that when you're sitting in this main dining space looking out, you can appreciate that. A coral bridge would then lead you over to this coral paving area, sort of a deck that leads you towards the outdoor structure that Mark spoke about, a paving deck that comes off the main living space. The pool has a 2-foot wide coping around it to allow for people to kind of play and run around it. Anchored on one portion of the, I don't know if we can So there's the walkway through the water feature. Core paving deck, here's the outdoor structure. The pool, getting back to what I was speaking about. This is a water feature that's about 3 foot tall. Large boulders that will spill water over and trickle into the pool, just kind of breaking up the monotony of the pool in the back area.
I'm sorry, how high did you say?
3 feet.
Thank you.
This is another outdoor gathering space we're proposing off of the pergola there. It's going to have a seating area as well as we're thinking about a pre-manufactured fire pit in that location. Getting over here further towards the seawall, we are proposing a Clusia hedge, and embedded in that hedge would be a fence just to keep a little bit of safety for the client. The lawn, we want to leave it as open as possible for the little baby that you saw to run around and play in the future. We're creating some pockets of coconut palms just to keep that tropical feel, but we don't want to ruin any of the views, so we're leaving it as wide open as possible. Further down towards the bottom of the site, there's a kind of a placeholder for a little outdoor space right here. It's an octagonal shaped structure, as well as a coral walkway that comes off of the dining area in this location. There's a large existing ficus tree in this location. We're going to keep that and anchor it with some shade-loving plants. We've tried to keep a lot of, we have the material, the plant species available if you'd like to see, but mostly kept it drought-tolerant native species. Okay, we have some elevations. You want to go through those?
Let's just go through them. Okay. And then we'll get to go back and forth. Policy we gotta review. I'll just step in and move it along a little bit. These are the front elevations from the street, the entry. This is the rear. This is the rear, sorry. Again, you'll see it on the video, so we'll just go through these. These are the technical planting and landscaping detail. So I'd just like to take you on a flyby now, and show you what this looks like. Main feature. If it works, it better work. I'll lock the door till it works.
Is there music that comes
Yeah.
in?
No, we haven't quite got to that
No.
stage yet.
Do we have to wear special glasses?
Here, this is, it happens quickly, but this is
We're getting
driving
there.
in
Oh, this is cool.
through that driveway we both Matt and I explained, coming up to the main entry area. That's the garage wing. This, you're gonna see the back side entry from the motor court shortly. That's that equipment yard that Matt described. This is coming in through the service, through that palm stand. You can see there are two copper elements, one on this octagonal breakfast area, which will be a standing seam copper. And we're going to go across this bridge with a koi pond here. Tropical planting, and that's the pavilion that's for barbecuing and pizza oven. It's that fire pit just flew by. You're going to see the rock. There are the rocks that Matt described that are 3 feet. You'll start to see the two pergolas elements on the rear, the upper balconies and lower loggia with that Chippendale. The coloration may not be exact because it's very difficult to get it, but it's we've worked on it quite a bit actually, and it's getting much better.
Mark, is the landscaping pretty much in keeping with the
It's
plan?
very close. You'll see shortly when we do a fly, the citrus here, but the main trees are correct. So, but you can get a feel of that open lawn area on the south side of the pool is aligned symmetrically on the family room. That's how that element's anchored. That vehicle keeps coming and going, delivering stuff.
So that service
There
area
goes
off the
somebody.
garage, Mark, the service area off the garages is what, air conditioning units and
Yes.
pools, motors and?
Generator.
Everything?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's all, we call it a equipment field. Here you are coming in again, just kind of, but what this does, it gives you that feeling how far it is, so it's not that evident from the street. Creates privacy. Don't mess with that.
It has it.
Oh, okay. Thought there was another one. So that's basically, I didn't want to spend more time in the architecture because I think the video actually gives you a much better, and we can replay it or respond to any comments that the board may have. Got that, Rita?
Pardon?
Did you catch that?
I got that. Done good.
Thanks.
So why don't we start with some questions? I know there's an issue regarding the entry features, so let's leave that to the end
Yes.
and address any other questions.
I really don't have any, I really like it, I think it's a great job. It's a
I like to
beautiful,
live in it.
it's a beautiful site, you know, when you're right around the site, so it really is one of the neatest lots
It
I've
is.
been on.
Who is, I know the sergeants are right to the east, who's to the west? Do we know?
Lars?
Okay, Lars, right, okay, and did they have any input, or they?
No, they only, as I mentioned
No.
to the question, I think Tom brought up, the only agreement was to remove that driveway, which
Gotcha.
currently,
Mhm.
which in a previous scheme we had used as a service, because it's a natural service
Right.
drive, but that was the agreement. It was,
And your previous scheme, you never came through the whole process? Or
Yes, we did.
You went through a whole approval and everything, oh, interesting, some years ago.
yes, about 5 years ago.
You know, in terms of the location, it's a narrow roadway, so when the property's big, so presumably most of the trucks and everything will be on the property, not on the roadway.
Yes, I mean, we have ample,
Yeah.
we're working with Mao and Associates, and
Okay.
they've already started contemplate staging and as Matt mentioned, relocating some existing vegetation that we're going to put in a holding area. So I've ignored Bill's parking plan.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding.
You ignore me a lot.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful.
Okay, well, why don't we, Mark, have you seen,
Yeah, I'd like, I was going to get back to our, I think this, and I know it's coming up on a workshop in early December, some of these elements that need to be readdressed or redefined in terms of what's preferred, what's discouraged. What I think, and I'm a little bit biased because when I see planners doing architectural review, it's a little bit concerning. If you, and hopefully you saw it in the video, this two-story element has a recessed entry loggia or portico, which is in effect a one-story element. We have a habitable area above, and therefore this is not a entry element. I think the entry elements we all fear in this town are what I call it uninhabitable entry areas, which people elevate as high as they can to make a statement. This is a very classical entry element. It has a set of columns and an entablature effect or element. That element is actually part of the structure for the second floor. I think what urban design has come back to you with is that they're using the string course on the top of the entablature as the height of that entry, which we feel is totally incorrect. Because, and by the sketch that they provided you last night, I think they suggested lowering that frieze or entablature. The entablature is based on the span and the support. It's proportionate to the height and to the column separation. You can't just arbitrarily lower this point down to meet the 14 feet. It is just not a realistic, it's not correct, I should say, from a design proportion standpoint. This is done as it's part of the second story structure. It's a decorative element. We can actually remove it, which we wouldn't want to do. This could exist with just a column and then we comply. So our point is that that's the point of height. This is actually a support for the second floor. So I think it's something you've got to be very careful, and you know, I hope that our credibility here is enough to know that we're trying to do the right thing. We're not, you know, trying to violate anything, but this is truly a one-story entry element with this portico element here. We're not projecting a balcony. If you're familiar with the Sargent House, we had a pediment element with a portico roof that came out separate and above or from the main building. This is bringing the second floor over and above, which again is done very classically. Can we get to the photograph? I just brought some imagery that I thought might help, you know, in your thoughts for when this workshop comes up. If I can just get to them. Because it's all about proportion and what's correct. Here's a front door, which is on plane. But this is the kind of scale that we're trying to avoid. And that, under what's defined here, is correct. Your entablature and your column is way up there. How do we move these? Here again is an example of, you know, what you don't want to do. In our case, we're actually on the second floor here. Here is a simple, very similar to what we're saying, not in scale and design, but that's a front entry element right there. So you would take it from that point down. I'm just giving you, you know, some feel that when you have a second story coming over an entry portico, here again, this is not as exaggerated, but in fact, it's where you have a second story over an element. That's your entry element. Again, this is a whole loggia entry. But the second floor comes up. You can't arbitrarily just go up to here and say that that's the entry. It's to the arch here.
So you would argue it's to the arch, not the next.
No, because this is it could be taken in this case possibly here, but I don't think that's appropriate because again there is structure here supporting the second floor. The difference with a projected portico, which can be a balcony or it could just be a roof, is then that does define an entry element, and the key word is element. But this is actually an entry. Here's a classic, and this is what we, you know, are you going to tell me that this is your entry element here? I mean, here you've got pilasters that go up to an entablature, which has a frieze and has a pediment. Here's your front door. Is this your entry element? You know, it's you know, this is all second floor above it. So I'm just pointing this out, and I just want to share these with you because, again, it's in the eye of the beholder, I guess. But I don't think we want to prevent people from doing like what we propose here this morning, because it's really not classified under the guidelines here. And more importantly, I don't want us to start mimicking or modifying architectural elements just to achieve some, what I call arbitrary reference point as to the height. It's got to be dictated by the physical opening. Because as you see, and if I go back to some of these, That's your physical opening to there. That's your height. You know, some of the decoration, I think it's arbitrary to say, you know, in our ordinance, we have reference to eaves, everything's to eaves, and I was co-author of some of that. But I think that's what you're trying to avoid, you know, that exaggerated height, that forced height, and then somewhat of a.
Look at me.
Sorry?
Look at me. Look at me. Back to back.
Yeah, you know, it's just I'm bigger than you. But, so I just caution the board to look at it in respect to the architecture, proportion, and the architectural style. Let's not modify design or classic elements to satisfy some, you know, fairly ambiguous reference point, which goes from preferred to prohibited or recommended, whichever. You know, that's the, and it's based on, that's why we should be, the onus is on us as the architect to interpret that and hopefully provide something that's, you know, appropriate solution. Sorry, you.
Mark, I think that the one thing that, to make everybody more comfortable with this entire design is to go back, I think there were, in the elevation, you have, it's just a strictly 2D rendering. You don't know if these columns, you can't tell if they're square or flat, and then, but in the presentation you made, it appears that the columns, the side columns are in fact flat, which I think does a lot to mitigate the massiveness of the, of what appears to be a
Right, it
very
doesn't
large
project out.
feature.
That's, and I use those other ones which are scale-wise, but when you have a recessed element,
And
that's the completely different thing. If you had a portico that came out and projected out, then you can start to define that element in terms of height.
this is an element, these two outer columns aren't really columns. I mean,
No,
they're more, they're gonna stick up, what, 5, 6 inches from the.
If that,
If that.
Yeah.
And I think maybe if we went back to that part of the presentation of the video where we see the, sort of that side elevation, and are the two interior columns, are those round?
Yes.
That are gonna be
Round.
set, okay.
Right.
But they're, no, I don't feel that the elevation does,
No,
says to
it
what's
doesn't
being
give you that
presented.
recess.
No.
And to Hewlett's point, that the plane of the building is uniform from the ground up.
I think maybe if we could stop there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's
Now,
all in
what are
one
you
plane.
proposing, is the second story, is that a all coquina cover, or is that actually the same color as the house?
Well, it's going to be either plaster or coquina. Right now, it's stone.
It is, yes, there we go, okay.
So it's just, again, on the same plane. And that's the point I forgot. That pier that you're referring to on the corner and the plane of the second floor are all on the same plane.
Mark, just while you're on that, sorry, this isn't to do with your question. On the right-hand side, is it on the plans you call it raised stucco bands? Is that the white line?
Correct.
Keep going, there. And that's basically, it's against the plane, but it's
It's
okay.
projecting, it's interrupting, it's a string course we call it.
Okay, because on the west, and this is slightly separate, on the west elevation, you've got quite a big mass,
Well, it's broken up with this.
but it doesn't appear on the...
No, it doesn't.
Okay, because it seems like a big mass, and I just wondered if you've got that raised stucco band on that side, it really gives it a definition.
Yeah, it is continuous, it's a string course
Okay.
around the building.
It's just that it's not, yeah, it's not on the elevation.
Good point, because, you know, this tool here, this video, this
Yeah.
is,
Right.
yeah,
Oh, sorry.
you see it there on the bottom
Yeah,
left.
that's great.
It does show you in three dimensions
Okay.
what's happening, and it's a very helpful tool, not only for this, you know, presenting, but for us to.
Sorry to
you know,
interrupt,
and
so that
we
was
work-
just that...
It's
I just-
morphed since,
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine.
And actually, just earlier this week, we sat down with the owners and tweaked a few things that we saw that needed to be refined.
Great.
So
Thank you.
So I'll go back here.
We'll go back to the front.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna hit you back there. That's too flat, let's go back.
So Mark, in the context of the code, the reference to other element, which establishes the height, you would argue that the upper band is not an other element? Is that what you're saying? I'm just looking at it. in
I'm arguing
context
that,
of-
or I'm suggesting, and I feel strongly that from that underside to the finished floor is your height. This
And
band,
that's 12 feet,
yes,
right? That's 12.
yes, correct. And this is a detail which is giving the effect of an entablature.
And that's the 3
And that
feet.
is-
That's
yeah.
more
1
3
inch.
feet or
Yeah,
more.
now if,
Right.
and let me clearly define, if this element was projected off the face of the building 2 or 3 feet, and then step back to the second floor, then an argument could be made that that's the overall height of the element. This is really a decorative element, but the key thing is that this is all in the same plane. I don't know if I answered that correctly.
Well, I think what you're saying is that by the definition of the code, that band is not another element. You would argue it's the lower portion.
The key word in that code is balcony, or any projection that interrupts
Well,
that vertical alignment. Then you fall into the possibility of saying, yeah, that is your overall height. But when it's aligned with the mass of the front facade, and again, some architects may say, oh, we'll just take that decoration out, and that would be just horrendous.
what I'm trying
Because
to
it is decoration.
You need to help me. I'm trying to navigate through the code
Mhm.
to be
Sure,
helpful.
sure.
I think one thing that we have to do is define whether this is a 1-story or 2-story entry, because under the definition of a 2-story is completely within the code, because it says in our the review that we got from the urban design studio that the plans indicate a 2-story entry feature with 1-story elements. The second-story portion of the proposed entry feature is 21 feet 6 inches in height as measured to the EU height. This is consistent with the preferred height of a 2-story portion. And I think that's maybe, if you can address this, is how we should look at it as far as being a 1-story entrance or a 2-story entrance.
Well, I think
Because it is consistent with the 2-story.
we feel it's a 1-story because of the nature of it being indented and reseated. And this is the difference between a lot of the other homes, is that this entry portico is inside, within the envelope of the building.
Yes.
And it's not under a
Projecting.
portico or a balcony or any of those projected elements, and that's the difference. So that's where we feel that this is clearly, you see, it's not, that is,
Good try.
that's 2 stories, right? Now, if the colonnade, well, it wouldn't, because it has a ceiling which is obviously up in the clouds, so. But that shows, that is clearly would exceed our intent in the code here, or violate.
So in the proposed design then, you would argue that the 1-story element stops at the top of the columns. And I think we should add very importantly that those are flat columns. The 2 outer
Right.
large columns aren't columns per se.
They're piers.
They're piers.
Structure, yeah.
So
There
that's-
is an element above those columns, correct? That lower one. What is sitting right on top of the, yes, what's that? That's an element, right?
That's a capital. Oh, yes.
Call it another element, would you please? For me.
Other element.
That's tight then.
Give me your, what's the term that,
I mean, without getting too technical, this is called a corona. This little
Okay.
band right here. It's basically the same thing as this,
Okay.
except it's just a different shape.
And what's the upper one called then?
Then this is the frieze,
Right.
Yeah?
and then underneath the frieze you have bed mold, which is it can take numerous shapes, and then you have basically a corona again, but in a crown shape that you typically would see at the top of your wall here. This type of crown.
So corona, fascia, corona.
Yeah, corona
Yeah.
frieze and the
and bed mold.
frieze where you would see decoration.
Corona freeze,
Yeah.
corona.
Bed mold, freeze.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the 3 feet 1 inch that we're talking about, right? Above the 12 feet?
Right, right. This is decoration.
And as far as structure, if you were building this out of stone long ago, you'd have, limestone columns. You'd have the beam, which holds up the second floor.
Yeah.
That's what that breaks down to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Which is structure, not
Structure, not, this is all.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Any other comments, questions?
I think it's beautiful,
I did.
very well.
I think Mark makes his point.
Do we have a motion? I think you should read it, Malcolm.
I'm going to say, I
I
got hit last week. You should have been here last week, last month, Mark. It was classic. With grey tiles through and through, and everyone was joining in.
Oh.
Thank you, Paul. So we can go with this as it is. Lucas was saying for this.
Oh,
No, we've got to take out one.
Take that out.
Yeah, we've got to take one
I
out.
want to take out.
Sorry, I was just reading through. Yeah, we can go. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval for a level 3 architectural site plan based on a finding that the proposed partial 2-story single-family Anglo-Caribbean style dwelling with cabana, a 3-car garage, a total of 12,710 square feet, and a swimming pool meet the minimum intent of the design manual and applicable review standards with the following condition. Any minor modifications in the landscape plan should be submitted to the town manager for review and approval, and any major modifications should be brought back to the ARPB for review and approval prior to the commencement of landscaping.
I'll second.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
And Chairman Lyons?
Yes.
Okay, thank you all.
By the way, all that visual is very helpful.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
fantastic.
Really made the case.
Yeah.
And it is a beautiful home.
Yep.
Absolutely gorgeous. Congratulations.
Well, more importantly, on the baby.
Yeah.
She's 2 weeks old.
Oh, my.
December the 12th is your next meeting.
So what happens when you have more? You're gonna have to build another house.
Two is good.
One of each.
Two is plenty of.
Okay, let me find my,
Okay, thank you. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thanks, guys.
Did you take your something? For the what?
Yes, there we go.
Very technical.
Bye-bye.
items by staff, please?
None.
Items by board members?
Just a quick question. When I was driving down to inspect the property we just talked about, on the sergeant's house, they have a metal roof on one of those buildings. Were you allowed to put a metal roof on a building in that area? Were you?
I think that was brought up in the review. I don't remember exactly, but when we went through the process. And as being in keeping with the architectural element involved.
It was also considered in regards to the square footage compared to the overall,
So
and
small.
that was an accent element. So that was the argument.
Well, I guess it is similar in this
Metal
case,
roofs.
With
because
the
we have,
copper roofs.
we have the copper little section that
Yeah.
we treated too.
Well, this is just a plain old metal roof, like we're discouraging. But it doesn't matter, it was passed, I just was curious.
Is the entire roof?
No,
No,
they have 3 buildings, it's the middle of the 3
Oh,
buildings.
it's the middle of the cigar room. Yeah,
Yes.
his cigar bar room, yes, that's, okay. Yes, that's what that room is now.
Okay. That's why my house took so long to get approved, because they're working on this garden.
Yeah.
She smokes cigars, that's
Yes.
the moral of the story.
Okay, any comments by the public?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Very good meeting.
Thanks everyone. Thanks, Paul.
Quick,